Hi, everybody. I'm Dylan Lockwood. I'm the online content editor at Z Prime. I host our podcast. You should check it out. But enough about me. We've been hearing a lot today about how the city of the future, the foundations of it are being built today. We've heard lots of great examples, like Chris said, San Antonio, Houston, Austin, New Orleans. But we can't forget the little guy or the medium guy, the 200,000 to 500,000 people, depending on whose census you're looking at. But so I can't think of anyone better to talk about it than these two smart women. We've got Kim Zentz, CEO and co-founder of Urbanova, and Susan Sanford, executive director at the Research Triangle Clean Tech Cluster. So Susan, we'll start with you. For those a little less familiar with who you guys are and the work you do, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work you've done?
Okay, I should start by saying it's a long name. It's the Research Triangle Clean Tech Cluster.
Or did I mess it up?
No, you didn't. My board would skin me if I started calling it the Raleigh Clean Tech Cluster. But it is, you've all heard of the Research Triangle Park, probably, and so we take our name from that area. My organization, RTCC, is a nonprofit economic development organization focused on expanding the clean tech industry in the Triangle. And we were spun out by our regional economic development organization about 7 years ago. And I represent a region that is 2.1 million people. And like Shelley said about San Antonio this morning, it's rapidly growing. It should double in size by 2040, 2045, which presents a lot of challenges. You know, we're listening this morning about the challenges of data sharing internally in a local government, but we're talking about, you know, across jurisdictions. So I'm here. We brought a couple of other North Carolinians with us to learn and to share, and I just want to point out Noah Otto with the City of Raleigh, and then Samir Trivedi with Trilliant, which moved its headquarters to North Carolina. I don't know if he's in the back somewhere. So anyway, thank you, Z Prime.
Kim, why don't you tell us a little bit about Urbanova?
All right. Well, first, I am really glad to be here because when I left home, it was 2 degrees, and now it's blowing and drifting snow, so thank you for sharing your weather with me. I really appreciate that. Urbanova is an organic collaboration that formed at the instigation of our regional gas and electric utility, Avista, and Itron. The first steps were to bring together the city, the research university, so City of Spokane, Washington State University, and then later we added the Public Development Authority over the area that you'll hear me talk about called our University District, and Smart Buildings DBOM, Design, Build, Operate, and Maintain contractor in the West, known as McKinstry. Later, last year, we added Verizon and the Gallup organization. You'll hear me talk about that a little bit more also, but the point I make is I have 8 partners, and they're across the public and private sector, and our mission is very simple. It's to make communities better for people. An emphasis on every single one of those words. We're looking for scalable and replicable solutions for mid-sized cities because we're leveraging Spokane's advantages as a mid-sized city on the rise. And we're harnessing data to gain insights, empower people, and solve urban challenges in new ways. So that's my intro.
Awesome.
Get it back to you.
So Kim, what's going on in some of these smaller, less scrutinized regions that maybe some of the folks here have been missing out on?
Well, we don't really consider ourselves smaller, I would say. So the population of Spokane proper is 260,000 people. But when you look at the county, it's well over 500,000, and we serve as the education, medical, and business banking center for a region that serves well over 2 million people. But as I mentioned before, we're focused on the challenges and the opportunities that mid-sized cities have. And that's any area over 100,000 for a rule of thumb. But when you really look at the urbanization of the planet, already more than half the people on the planet live in mid-sized cities. And as that continues toward 2050, that number will double. So sure, there will be more megacities, and some cities who are almost megacities will become megacities, great. but there's going to be a lot more mid-sized cities. And we argue that mid-sized cities will have different types of challenges than the mega regions and the mega cities will have. So we're very focused on taking a systems approach. That is keeping all of the different factors on the table. That's why we have a diverse set of partners as we are looking for those scalable and replicable solutions. And you've heard a lot about that this morning and this afternoon, about how it is necessary in this time of accelerated change to be able to have the perspective and not leave anyone behind. And last of all, you do not want to leave behind the actual citizens who are having the lived experience in your neighborhoods. So no two cities are alike, but no two neighborhoods are alike. We are taking a really deep dive on what the sentiments are of the citizens that live in the neighborhood. So that's some of what's going on. We have a series of projects, but if I start talking about those, we'll run out of time.
Well, speaking of projects, Susan, I believe you had a project you wanted to talk about, the Clean Tech Commercialization Corridor project that you just got a grant to undergo. So can you tell us a bit about what that is and what that sort of means for the region?
Yeah, so I'm still pinching myself. We were awarded this federal grant in December last year, and like just a plug for the federal government, the window is open right now for this grant. If there are any city folks here, it's the U.S. Commerce, Economic Development Administration, Regional Innovation Strategies. Maybe you've already won this grant before. They gave out 40 awards in December out of 240 applicants, and this is our first shot, and the only one awarded in the Southeast. And so we're excited, but essentially it's to build a clean tech corridor. And so in North Carolina, our economic engines, for the most part, are the Research Triangle region and then the Charlotte regions. And so we're leveraging both of those regions to drive clean tech innovation and deployment. And I can describe that a little bit. We are in month 2 of a 36-month project, so we are still articulating what this means. But essentially, so our region, the Triangle, we have a lot of smart grid mod, IoT-enabled, like analytics, those kinds of solutions. Over here in Charlotte, we've got Duke Energy and like that traditional utility, those kinds of assets. Our organization, the cluster, is about ecosystem management. We don't have an incubator on our region, so we thought we would partner with a clean tech accelerator based in Charlotte. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking that accelerator, which before December was just getting input from Duke Energy. Duke Energy would say, here's our pain points, go find us some technology. Maybe we'll pilot them in some of our business units. And we're saying, okay, we're bringing the collective voice of our municipalities, to that process, as well as the private sector and universities, to identify shared problems, use the accelerator to source solutions, and then come back and then deploy them. And so we've seen a few. What's exciting about this is smaller municipalities have a place at the table too. So anyway, month 2. It's month 2.
But I think that goes very much with what Kim was talking about, which is leveraging the community, leveraging the human capital and the social capital of your region to drive this sort of innovation. So Kim, can you talk a bit more about how Urbanova's leveraged the communities of Eastern Washington to start us down this path of innovation?
Certainly. In our initial conversations, we solidified around the think big, start small, go fast type of a strategy. And so in Spokane, there's a 770-acre university district that I touched on before. That's about the same size as Central Park in New York City. It's mixed use. It has 6 higher education institutions in the center, so there's institutional property, but there's huge commercial and industrial opportunity to the south of the railroad track that bisects the area, but that area is also adjacent to our medical district. And then those 6 higher education institutions in various ways collaborate around and amplify the region's medical cluster. So there are 2 medical schools in that 770-acre area. And then there's the regional medical cluster. So we have a real high emphasis on healthier citizens, safer neighborhoods, smarter infrastructure, a more sustainable environment, and ultimately a stronger economy. So the idea is to get over those hurdles of sharing data across jurisdictions, not just across city departments, but also across the public and private sector. And in fact, we're trying to take on cracking the nut around very private data, such as health data that's been properly de-identified. So a lot of our work is on an open architecture, standards-based open data, and open analytics platform where the privacy and security are trusted so that that type of data sharing can actually take place. So that's a massive undertaking, but that's why we limited the scale. Also, the theory behind that is for city leaders, they need evidence to bring back, both city employees and city leaders need evidence to bring back to the citizens and the stakeholders to say, well, this is what happened when we tried, for instance, one of our projects that's going to be implemented this year is combined gas, electric, and water advanced metering infrastructure. So that's easy to say. It's kind of really logical to think about. Why would you duplicate, say, the communication backbone for all three of those services? But it's a lot harder to do when you have different jurisdictions. So gas and electric is served by our investor-owned utility, Avista, but water is a city service. So accomplishing those kinds of challenges and then reporting back what we learned, what worked and what needed tweaking on a smaller scale before it is contemplated to bring it citywide, or to also write about and report on those lessons learned so that other cities can learn from what we tried.
And Susan, what have you seen in the various regions that you operate in that have, what projects have you seen undertaken that help, that have shown the viability of these kinds of projects in those sorts of regions?
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, my mind's blown. I think I need to go visit Spokane right now.
I will say the university area she's talking about is flanked on either side by the two best bar districts in Spokane.
Okay.
It's a great place
All
for a college.
San Antonio folks are like, oh gosh, what was the question again with the viability?
What projects have you seen in your neck of the woods that have really that have shown a use of a viability for smart cities projects in areas smaller than San Antonio?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Well, I guess a couple things. One thing I do want to sort of echo what Shelley was saying this morning about larger municipalities already working in smart cities applications, and just kind of mention that City of Raleigh is doing a lot that we just don't, like I just learned about over lunch today, quite frankly, because our cities are not in the business of marketing themselves and what they're doing and calling it smart cities, but using ways to identify potholes, to streamline service, things like that, is already taking place. But what we're seeing is there's a lot of opportunity across the region, but our smaller municipalities are super hungry. And in North Carolina, the smaller municipalities, a lot of them are they're municipal owned or they're co-op. And so they have fewer residents, they're closer to their constituents, so they know what their needs are, and two, they own their infrastructure assets. So, we have a town, we have one called the town of Benson. It's population 3,700. They don't have a smart cities manager. Their town manager is their smart cities manager. So he really doesn't have, talk about having capacity to get involved with some of these projects, but they've done some really cool things. Their utilities are all AMI. They've installed Wi-Fi downtown. They're working with a startup called, I don't know if any of you have heard of State of Place. It's like a walkability, livability platform to help cities determine where is their pedestrian vulnerability, how walkable is your city. They're looking to pilot that in their little downtown core to make the case to close the deal on bringing a national beverage retailer to the town of Benson. And that is like a real tangible example of using a smart city solution to drive economic development. So anyway, that's a long way of saying I think there's a lot of opportunity in smaller and mid-sized communities too.
We don't have a ton of time, but I did want to just see, since there's you know, a lot to dig into. If anyone in the audience maybe had a question about the work going on in these regions, we've got microphones set up in these center aisles here.
Well, while you're thinking about
Yeah.
that, I might
I was
just...
going to pass it off to you.
Oh, okay, sorry. I might just go a little deeper on the human-centric piece and why we teamed up with Gallup. So most people think of Gallup as a polling organization, and indeed they are, one of the first and one of the largest. But that's only about 20% of their portfolio. The rest is data analytics and social science, behavioral economics, behavioral health. And so what we're doing after doing a few proof point projects is really trying to get the problem statements clearly stated, like I said before, in the language of the citizens that are having the lived experience. And what we are doing is responding to that trend that you see everywhere in this time of acceleration, where we are expecting things to be more preventive, more predictable, more participatory, and more personalized. And so the way we think about what we're doing in the neighborhoods of the University District is akin to mapping the city genome. So what good is big data if you're not really going to get down to understand everything you can about characterizing the types of solutions and the priorities that people are actually expressing? So that helps you know, as a city leader or as a public-private partnership, it helps you know what is top of mind, how it's articulated, and then and only then are you fully equipped to identify whether technology and what types of data you want to collect so that you can address the pain points expressed by the citizens. The other benefit of that, and the platform I mentioned, is to move citizen engagement from being episodic around a project to being continuous, so that people are always involved with providing feedback and information back to the city.
So you're talking about scalable and replicable projects. I talked to a person from a smaller Central Washington utility for a paper we were doing a while back, and it was about IoT, but he was talking about how he does a lot that whenever they want to undergo any kind of project, they wait to see what all the bigger utilities are doing before they undergo these kinds of projects. But I think there is a way that we can drive innovation at this level in an economically feasible way. And I think part of that has to do with the community participation you were talking about. And Susan, since you were also talking about the smaller municipalities, how do you feel? What advice would you give to someone who's in that sort of area and wants to undergo these kinds of projects? Yes.
Oh gosh. That's a really good question. My perspective, of course, is influenced by where I sit, which is in a community engagement organization. So I would say, if you have limited capacity, look to your community resources. Because we're here advocating for you, trying to tell your story and bring solutions to you. So.
Kim.
And as a region or a community or even a neighborhood just getting started, I say think about what your strengths are and play to your strengths. So we are very blessed to have partners like Itron and Avista and other energy-based, clean energy-based technology leaders in our region. And then I mentioned the 2 medical schools. So that did play a huge factor in how we structured what we wanted to do and how we chose to move forward. But every area has strengths. And the strengths boil down to individual strengths. So just one more time, that's another reason we partnered with Gallup, because we feel like as we get deeper and deeper into the neighborhoods and start talking about how they can contribute to solving the problems, what their role is in solving the problems, we imagine using Gallup's Strengths Finder at a neighborhood level and at that scale.
Well, it looks like we're just about to run out of time, but I would like to thank you both very much for being on and talking about this. There's a lot more to talk about the work being done in these regions and regions like them all over the country. So please, 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 when this is all said and done, come talk to these two ladies. They're amazing, and they have a lot to share. So, and to the rest of you, thank you for attending City of the Future, and I hope you're having a great conference. Thank you.